Have you experienced the awesome power of the Panasonic Real 3DO system? Obviously.
Presenting 3DO, the most advanced home gaming system in the universe. It's time to put away your toys.
3DO from Panasonic, Gold Star, and Creative Labs. A new low price and free games.
Mind-blowing graphics of Panasonic Real 3DO. 3DO.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the 3DO Experience, your one-stop shop for all things 3DO and experience. This is Thrak, the pinball wizard this week. Joining me, as always, is everyone's favorite golf ball machinist, Bill. How you doing, Bill?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. It was a very eventful 2 days so far. We tragically, did you see the news? The original voice actress for Misty died.
Yeah, I did see that. That was pretty sad.
It was sad, and then you found out it was cancer, and I was like, God damn it! It's like the worst.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll never truly figure it out. I mean, we probably could. I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah, 49. Like she's only in her 40s.
I think 46, I believe.
Yeah.
And then also, like around the same time, the former YouTube CEO, Susan Wojcicki, she passed away from cancer at 56.
Yeah. That was like one of the weirdest like splits I've ever seen of opinion. Like I think like the general consensus was everyone felt really bad for her family and like going that way, but everyone was like she was an awful CEO, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, I still feel bad. It's one of those weird things where it was.
I don't think she was as bad as everyone says.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't good. I mean,
like the whole YouTube apparatus. I think you can't blame it on just one person.
No,
you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, she has to, even if she's the CEO of YouTube, she has higher ups to answer to at Google. So, you know, if you want to blame them, that's fair.
I'm pretty sure she was just a punching bag for like most of the shit.
Yeah, she absolutely was, and yeah, YouTube did take a turn for the worst of her reign. But again, it's like I don't know if it's necessarily her fault. It might be, but you know, even still, she didn't commit war crimes. So.
No. That's why I wasn't like, I saw some people were like, were happy, and I was like, that's fucked.
No. There are certain people I would celebrate their deaths because they're genuinely awful people who have committed atrocities, but she's not in that list.
Yeah, and even then, I still wouldn't post it online. But that's.
I mean, when HW died, I was fine. But that's different, you know. Every president's a war criminal. Anyways, today, so let's see. Bill, have you been playing any games recently?
Have I been playing any games? Not a whole lot. I've been doing a lot of work on my game room lately.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's been a big project. Like I got after we did the last episode, I actually pulled out and found like all my old Game Informers.
Nice.
I have them now somewhat on display in my game room. I made this whole new shelving system, like so I can put a bunch of old consoles on there. And I just recently added more like CD racks, so now I have more space for like jewel case games.
Yeah, the other day I was cleaning out that closet behind me, and I had like an old plastic like CD rack thing that I got from like a Goodwill, and the thing was snapped and destroyed. So I had to check that thing out. But yeah, I did a bit of cleaning myself. I saw you had an Atari 7800, but no games for it. Or no,
it was one of those
games.
It was one of those cases where it was kind of like I found the thing at a retro store, and it was like one of those deals that you really couldn't pass up, but they had no games for it, so I was kind of like, eh.
Yeah, if I saw how much you pay for it, like $20?
I was like 50, I think, which isn't too bad.
For $50, I would buy a 7800. Absolutely. Does it have? I assume you've not hunted down the European controller.
I haven't, and I need to do that because I found out after I bought it, it didn't come with a controller. I was kind of
really? Well, because there's that American joystick one, which is I'm told is fine. I forget what it's called, but like
it's not so much that it's bad; it's
like
just kind of awkward. Yeah, it's
that weird little joystick thing. Which I feel like I would prefer the 2600 controller.
even that's not great. I mean, if you're
No, it's
to be,
not. It's not great.
to be perfectly honest, if you're playing 7800 or 2600, just plug a Genesis controller in. It's like the
Yeah.
easiest like workaround. I
Yeah,
do want to find one of those European controllers though.
Yeah, because it's for our audience who doesn't know this, the 7800, I believe it was in Europe only, got a weird NES type controller. I believe it's called the CX78. And it's weird. It has like a D-pad and like the straight upper left corner. It's shaped like an NES controller, but it has like there, and I believe you can screw on like a joystick onto it to give it like a fake analog stick. And then it has two buttons at the bottom called 1 and 2, and they have weird little slots for supposedly fingers to go into. You know, I've never seen one in person, but I could just imagine it looked like how it looks. I feel like it would be fine, but just a bit wonky. You know what I mean?
I held one at a convention because they had one at a convention setup. It's better than the Master System controller. It's worse than the NES controller, but it's kind of like that in between. It's kind of on par with like the TurboGrafx controller.
Okay, I've never held a TurboGrafx controller either.
They're all basically the same form factor.
Yeah. I'd love to get a TurboGrafx, but the pricing for that has just gotten ridiculous.
I got a TurboGrafx like right around the point where the games were starting to go nuts. It was another one of those cases where like I just kind of happened upon it in the wild, and I was like, I have to get it. So
yeah, because the local store I was at last week, they have a TurboGrafx there, but it was like $300. I'm like, it's not worth that price.
I think I paid $120 like back in like 2017.
That's better. Like that's roughly what I think Dreamcasts go for now.
Yeah, Dreamcast is my favorite because like I paid $20 for a boxed one back in 2009.
Yeah, because this weekend I spent way too much time on Dreamcast emulation, just kind of messing around. I ended up beating a couple of Dreamcast games just messing around. And goddamn, it's such a cool system. I didn't go through every game, but I just messed around. I played a bit of D2, or I watched a bit of D2 because that opening cutscene takes forever. And I don't have much thoughts at the moment. But I went back to the old faithfuls like Crazy Taxi and Sonic Adventure, good old Sega Bass Fishing. Fucking love Sega Bass Fishing. And even discovered because I finally played Bang.io. Am I saying that right? Bang.io?
Yeah,
the
Bang.io.
Yeah, it's the game made by Treasure where you're like a mech and you're just like blowing shit up. Like you have the guy with the rockets and then the girl with the lasers. And goddamn, that's a cool fucking video game. You blow up buildings and you get giant oranges.
Another good one is Cannon Spike. I don't own it, but I really want to.
Cannon Spike is weird. I played a bit of that. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a weird like. It reminds me of like a 3D Contra almost, where it's like you have the projectile attacks, but you also have melee attacks depending on the characters. But it takes place almost on like a 3D fighting game map, almost like a pre-Power Stone kind of thing, where you fight a bunch of different enemies and then a boss shows up and then you defeat the boss. Like it's cool, but I don't know. The controls just felt kind of off to me. I don't know. I think it's an issue with Dreamcast games because they only have one analog stick.
Yeah.
So they're trying their best to make it work. Stick. Well, I was playing it on my either my Series X controller or my SM30 Pro because I did not buy a Dreamcast. I did a long time ago for not that much. Could not find the thing. I thought I still had it. I looked everywhere for it and I could not find it, so I must have sold it. And so I considered buying a Dreamcast, but seeing the prices of the games these days, it's fucking ridiculous. Like if I wanted to get Sega Bass Fishing with the fishing rod controller to play it that way, which honestly sounds really cool, like the price isn't terrible for that. But I'm like, do I really want to do that? Or could I just play it on my computer or my Series X and be fine? So I was like, I'll just do that, I guess. You know, who knows? And even looking into the maracas for Samba de Amigo, because I tried playing Samba de Amigo with a controller, and I'm like, hey, this sucks. Like, this is bad.
Yeah, it's meant for the maracas.
Yeah, seeing people play with the maracas, I'm like, okay, I would play it that way, but it's like $100 for that. So I'm like, no.
Yeah, I have a couple of the peripherals. Like I have the I've got the microphone to play Seaman.
Seaman.
I did that on purpose. My favorite is I have the keyboard to play Typing of the Dead.
Nice. The keyboard's not expensive.
No, they made a lot of them.
But Typing of the Dead is expensive.
Yeah, it's gone up a lot. If you're lucky, you can get them both together.
Yeah, probably, if you look hard enough.
I also have the mouse, so I can properly play Quake 3 keyboard and mouse style if I really want.
Yeah, because there's quite a few shooters on the Dreamcast, and I get the sense they all were kind of designed for mouse and keyboard, because I was playing one that people said was really good called Soldier of Fortune, and people say that game is really fucking good, right? And I wasn't sure why, but then when I saw the opening like text scroll or whatever, it showed, oh, Raven Software. I'm like, oh, that's why this game's good.
Yep,
it's fucking Raven made it, and the controller controls are weird. It reminds me of if you ever tried to play like the Call of Duty games on the DS.
Oh yeah,
it reminds me a little bit of that, but you get used to them, because they basically say like, oh, use the face buttons to move and strafe, and then you use the analog stick as your camera, and then like, R is shoot and all this other stuff. Like the controls are weird, but as I was playing it, I was getting used to it. And yeah, it was fun. It was surprising how like gory it got with when you like shot people, which is pretty cool.
Dreamcast games were kind of like edgy. Like the Sega was really trying. Like that's why I always joke like me and when I did that collab with Jerry a while back for GNC. We were joking. Alex referred to it as the little console that could, and I said, no, Alex, unfortunately, it was the little console that couldn't. But
yeah, like Sega wasn't being that edgy with it. I just think Sega, as far as like their game development was going, was kind of reaching a peak.
That was the strongest I think Sega ever was as a company. It's just a shame that they were so in the fucking toilet at the time.
In a weird way, yeah, because their games were popping off and the hardware was great.
They also
the reception around it was very strong. Like people have very fond memories of the Dreamcast, and it doesn't have a huge amount of games, but like the quality of games, even for me just messing around, like the quality of the games is really, really high. Like even from the third parties, like, like there's not a huge amount of third party stuff on there, but a lot of it is pretty good. There are bad games on there, of course, like like if you played Spirit of Speed, 1937.
I'm looking for a copy of that because I'm trying to complete the racing game collection.
It's
it's bad when like Acclaim didn't want to publish it, so they brought out the LJN logo just to hide behind that.
When I started playing it, my first thought was, okay, this isn't that bad. The controls are just kind of whatever. Like it controls like a generic racing game, which I feel for a historical racing game, that's probably not what you want. But I was like, yeah, whatever, no big deal, right? But then as I noticed, the first race they put you in, you have 10 laps.
Yeah.
And each lap takes between 30 and 40 seconds to beat. And I'm like, why is this thing 10 laps? And then it's so easy to get ahead. But if you just like crash just slightly, because it has a bit of oversteer, if you crash, then like everybody zooms by you and then you're fucked.
Yeah.
But it feels like that's an issue with some other Dreamcast racing games I played, where it's like they're way too hard.
Daytona USA on Dreamcast, you have to adjust the sensitivity because it is way too twitchy.
I was able to first place it with the default sensitivity.
You can get used to it, but it is a very twitchy race.
Yeah, because I was like, man, this shit is crazy. But I did get used to it because I was literally like just sitting here, just lightly flicking the stick, and it was all I needed.
It's a shame,
too, but it's not the original Daytona. I think it's Daytona 2.
No, it's a remake of Daytona. It's a completely original game. It's because if you've played Daytona 2, that's it. It looks nothing like that.
Yeah.
It's a completely original game. It's essentially a remake of Daytona 1 with all the tracks from Championship Circuit Edition.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it was actually Amusement Vision made it, the Monkey Ball theme.
Oh yeah, and it's not bad. It's just the music is almost there. It doesn't have the Daytona song. It doesn't have it. At least I didn't hear it.
It's a more techno-y remix heavy. I mean, it's not like the weird like June Sonoy soundtrack from a Championship Circuit edition, but it's
No, it's not that. No.
which I low-key kind of love the June Sonoy soundtrack from that
Yeah.
version. But
Yeah, like the version of Daytona on Dreamcast, it's very good, but it doesn't
Mm.
have the charm of the Saturn or even the arcade original. Because even the Saturn, like the original Saturn version, wasn't like they kind of rushed it, but they eventually re-released it.
yeah,
And
they
then
did Championship Circuit edition, which is weird because it doesn't play anything like Daytona.
Yeah, but it's kind of the better version, I think.
Yeah, it's better in certain ways. Like it doesn't have the charm of the original Daytona, but
No,
it's
it
a more
doesn't.
functional game, and it's got like
Yeah,
those really goofy Eric Martin songs for some
yeah,
reason.
yeah. But the original version of Daytona on Saturn's not bad.
It's not bad. It's just got really weird clipping issues because
Mhm.
it was rushed.
Yeah, naturally, because I think the Saturn's failure was too big for Sega to overcome. I think,
Mhm.
but because people always say the Dreamcast lost a lot of like steam as it went, and I mean I can't say I would. I mean I was there, but I wasn't paying attention to it. Because from what I hear, like it had a really strong start in '99.
Mm.
Like from September to the end of the year through the holiday season, it did really well, and then I guess through the year 2000, it just slowly dipped. I think because
Right around when PS2 got announced.
yeah, and then a lot of people, I guess, were more curious about that. And then when that came out in what was it, October of that year?
Yeah, it
Is
was pretty
it-
much dead in
Yeah.
the water.
Like I think Sega were hoping to have a really strong holiday for Dreamcast, and I think they did okay.
They did okay. The most telling thing was Sony infamously in America had a chip shortage and they weren't going to get enough PS2s out
Yeah,
for the holiday season. And the most telling thing was people would have rather waited than bought a Dreamcast.
yeah, because then like I think it was they were still selling SegaNet, and they're like, oh, if you buy the subscription, we'll just give you a Dreamcast, and
Yeah,
even
no
that
one
wasn't
bit.
enough.
No one bit.
Yeah. Some people probably did because because at the time I would have been like, oh yeah, get one at that fucking point, you know? Because if you look at the game lineup for the Dreamcast in the year 2000, I mean, it was its only full calendar year, but like, goddamn, like there's so many bangers in that year. So like the Dreamcast is that one system that when it was out, people weren't willing to give it the time of day. But then once it got discontinued, I think people were like, oh no, that was an amazing system.
It's the one failed console that everybody, I think, universally looks back on fondly.
Yeah, exactly. To where, like, I was just thinking about this. If for some reason Sega decided to like just be like, oh, here's like we're gonna do a limited edition run of brand new Dreamcast consoles, they would sell out immediately.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, if they were like, we're gonna print like an extra like 2 million of these, they would go like that.
Oh yeah.
And then they'd be like, could we add those to the worldwide sales count? I'd be like, yeah, technically. Because did it officially cross 10?
No, it was just under.
Okay. Because I'd heard some sources say it did manage to cross 10. Because it went longer in Japan.
It did. Yeah, it was still up until like 2007. I think it was still going.
Yeah, I think the last official Dreamcast game in Japan was 2007. I think you're right.
Let me look that up real quick because I'm actually kind of curious.
Yeah, it was because it was still getting games in Japan for years afterwards. Like it officially discontinued in March 31st of 2001.
Yep.
Which is funny if you're like me and you follow Jeff Gertzman. He's told the story about being at the like it was like the press conference call for that moment, and he was on the toilet the whole time.
Yeah.
I'll say if listeners don't know, go look it up because I think he said he was feeling really sick that morning, and so like he was literally in the bathroom and had the door open so he could hear the conference call because this was like before cell phones. When Sega was announcing to the video game press that they were discontinuing the Dreamcast and going into just pure software at that point.
So in terms of sales, the Dreamcast is actually kind of sad. Out of all like major consoles that really matter, it is probably the worst selling console because it only sold 9.13 million.
Yeah, of that. Well, everybody knows it was the weakest selling of that era.
But I mean, even it's below the Saturn, it's below the TurboGrafx, the Game Gear, the Master System, the Vita, the Wii U. It's unfortunate, even like the 2600, like the only significant consoles I can see that it actually beat were the Intellivision, ColecoVision, 3DO, 7800. Jaguar's not even listed because it didn't break
Well,
a million.
It didn't even break 500,000, I don't think.
No, it didn't. That's the sad. But the funniest thing is the Jaguar did beat the Pippin.
Oh,
It has
thank
that.
God. Thank God. But
but remember, the 3DO did break 2 million, so it has
Yeah.
that, and it's
yeah, and that's the thing. The Dreamcast, like the Saturn only eclipsed it by a couple 100,000 units, and
The thing is, though,
and that's probably because it was such a big hit in Japan.
Oh yeah, but the reason why I don't consider the Dreamcast sales numbers to be really a fair comparison is the fact that it was only on the market for like 2 years.
Yeah, it was only on the market for 2 years, and I'd say to sell almost 10 million units in like 2 years is not bad at all. If you compare like the time frame of it, because it sold like 4.5 million each year, which is not bad, especially for that era where like the PlayStation 1 selling 100 million units, people probably thought that was an anomaly because like everything else hadn't sold nearly as much as that.
I'm actually kind of curious if mine counts as one of those like sold, because I'm pretty sure mine was new old stock.
It might have been.
Because it was completely unopened. I bought it from like a gaming vendor who probably got it out of like a warehouse or something.
Well, they might have. I mean, the sold, they could have like done the thing where some companies have like they blend the term sold and shipped. You know what I mean? Where like when they ship out, say like 9 million Dreamcast, that means they probably sold those to retailers, and then it was up to the retailers at that point to sell them. So as far as Sega knows, that's what they sold. But there's probably a few unopened Dreamcasts floating around, but I'm sure Sega would count those as sold because they sold them to, say, like a retailer, and then somebody at that retailer took that sealed Dreamcast and was like, "Oh, I'm keeping this shit," which would have been the smart thing to do at the time. Like I imagine if we were around, like say in that early 2001 where the Dreamcast, where they announced it was discontinued, we probably would have been like, "Oh, let's go snag up everything we can." Like now is the time to do it because it's going to get discounted heavily.
Oh yeah. No, it's funny. It's just funny stuff like that. Like it's just one of those systems that like I swear like will forever be like in that pantheon of just like
it's immortalized. Yeah.
Hell, one of the rarest Dreamcast variations is the ones that fucking Fred Durst signed. I want one of those unironically. Like, that's just such a funny thing.
Mm-hmm. Though, yeah, but when I was looking at the hardware, like it was surprising that like they weren't as terribly priced as I thought they would be. Even say the Sega Sports variant, which I considered, but the problem was the games have really gone up.
They have
like people talk about the GameCube prices being inflated, and they are. Dreamcast prices are inflated. Sonic Adventure 2 is like $150.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is probably it had a limited print run on the Dreamcast. That would be my guess.
Late.
It was very late.
There's a reason why so many people refer to it by default as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, because they're not even aware the original exists.
Yeah, that wasn't a launch title for GameCube, was it?
It was very early.
Yeah,
I know that because it came up before DX.
It did, yes.
Yeah, because I remember I had this one of those kids that was like, well, actually, because I would refer to it as Sonic Adventure 2, and he'd be like, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and I'd just be like, it's the same fucking thing, loser.
It's on Dreamcast, bitch.
They're like Dreamcast.
Does it perform better on Dreamcast or GameCube?
They're about the same.
Okay, because I know Adventure 1 is better on Dreamcast.
Adventure 1 looks better on Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And well, because Sonic Adventure 1 is hilarious because it's kind of a broken as fuck game to begin with.
Yeah.
And with every port, they just port. It's like the most current version of Sonic Adventure is literally a port of a port of a port of a port.
And it's like the worst version.
And they break it slightly more each time they port it. So
yeah. That's why the game needs a remake.
It really does. Like the Dreamcast version is broken, but it's the least broken version.
It is, yeah. Because when I had my Dreamcast, that is obviously one of the games I had. Played quite a bit of it, and yeah, it's very good.
It also just looks the best. Like, yeah, the models are a bit blockier, but they have textures and like everything looks nice.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, if you're emulating Dreamcast games, if you're trying to like go up to 4K and really smooth out the textures and everything, those games clean up really well, especially Jet Set Radio. Like,
Oh, yeah.
holy fucking shit. You run that game through some like nice filters and, you know, like boost the resolution and all this other like texture buffers, all this shit, right? You'd swear that game came out recently. Like,
Oh,
it
yeah.
looks that fucking good. And it's just, that's the power of cell shading.
Oh yeah. No, like
I just wish I liked that game as much as everybody else.
it's definitely not as it's aged poorly in a lot of ways, but it's still
it's a good game. It is
it,
for sure, but it doesn't hit for me the same way it hit for like everybody else. Like the hard drive list where they ranked everything and they put Jet Set at the top. And it's like, I respect that choice. It wouldn't be my number one, but I'd respect the choice. And the little bit I've played of Jet Set Radio Future on the Xbox, I'm like, this is the better playing game of the two.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Jet Set Radio to me is like, it's one of those games where you just kind of had to be there, I guess.
Yeah. I think Future is probably the one to play. Which, if you're an OG Xbox collector, finding that game is not that difficult. If you don't mind getting Sega GT 2002 with it,
yeah, because
you gotta get the twin pack.
Yeah, I have the single somehow. Like, I just got it.
Yeah, for some reason the single's like $75, but the duo pack, I think I paid like $30 maybe.
I mean, you get it,
but I'm starting to see the double pack go up now. I'm starting to see that because I think people are wising up to, oh, they're buying it for that game. I mean, Sega GT's 02 is fine. It's fine, but it's like a, I mean, if you have an Xbox, just play like Forza or Project Gotham Racing.
Yeah.
That was those.
That was the huge thing, like with that game, because that game came out and like, it's like, this is a decent sim, and then
it is a decent sim.
Then Bizarre Creations was just like, hold my beer, and just shits out Project Gotham Racing.
Yeah, which is so much fucking better in like every way.
But you know what the funniest thing is though? They did the same thing on Dreamcast, because like Sega GT Original is a solid sim game. I mean, it was Sega's Gran Turismo at the time.
Yeah.
But then Bizarre Creations is like, here's a Metropolis Street Racer. Eat shit, Sega. And everyone's...
Yeah. Or the one good test drive game.
Oh, Le Mans,
yeah.
6 isn't bad. 6 is actually pretty good on Dreamcast.
Yeah.
I
mean, I hear Le Mans is the one to play though.
Well, Le Mans
I didn't get too deep into the racing games on Dreamcast, but
they're really good. The funniest thing about Test Drive Le Mans is the original PlayStation version was made by everyone's favorite awful company, Eutechnics.
Yeah.
You know, Ride to Hell guys. And when they brought it to Dreamcast, like Infogrames was like, they didn't want to embarrass themselves, so they actually remade it in-house. I forget which one. It was one of their in-house studios back when Infogrames actually gave a shit.
There's a lot of Infogrames games on Dreamcast.
There is, but the version they made for Dreamcast is like 100 times better, and it's actually a really awesome sim.
Mm-hmm. So listeners out there, if you want to emulate Dreamcast games, you can do it on RetroArch, but there is a fantastic Dreamcast emulator called Redream. It's a lot more like, you get less options, but it's a lot more plug and play. And there hasn't been a game yet that I've booted up on it that didn't work 100% perfectly, like even better than it would in RetroArch. I know there's a couple games on the compatibility tab that it just flat out won't run for some reason. And if you want to play any of the Windows CE stuff, you need to get more of a modern, because the only stable release is from like 4 years ago. And that does not run any of the Windows CE stuff. But if you get one of the more like, you know, developer release, which is a little bit more shaky, you can play those games. And I have that, and it seems to work just fine. Like literally any game I've put in it, no issue. So there's a few games like, I think it's the Tom Clancy games don't run, Tomb Raider doesn't run, I think Typing of the Dead doesn't run at all. But you know, it is what it is. So it runs the NFL 2K games perfectly.
Nice.
Because on the RetroArch Dreamcast emulator, they run, but there's a lot of issues with them. But in Redream, perfect. And you know, I give a shit about that. So
nice.
You know, and like, yeah, let's see. Yeah, like Alone in the Dark, the new Nightmare on Dreamcast. at least from my experience, trying to play it on RetroArch, it would crash like very quickly. But on Redream, it never crashed at all. So
Nice.
So yeah, so I recommend that. Unfortunately, Redream does not work on the Series X emulation, at least not yet. But my guess is it's a very small team working on it. But
Gotcha.
But if you want to play Bang.io, I recommend it on Redream because RetroArch, I mean, it runs, but there's a bit of slowdown. Redream, zero, absolutely zero slowdown.
Nice.
And it forces every game into widescreen.
Nice. Well, that was the Dreamcast experience.
Yeah, basically. Oh fuck, who was the Dreamcast?
Dreamcast Junkyard. Shout out to Dreamcast Junkyard.
Yeah. They sent me a link a couple days ago about they interviewed the former Sega sports producer David Perkinson.
Nice.
About his time working with he produced NFL 2K and World Series Baseball on the Dreamcast. So They have a nice article about that. So y'all should go listen to that. Y'all should go read that. So
I'll have to go check that out later.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so moving on to the actual console that we're supposed to be talking about for this podcast. Pinball games. Yeah.
I like pinball.
I do too. Do you like being the pinball though?
No.
Okay.
No. Because I need some Dramamine if I'm gonna do that.
So do you want to start with the vaguely interesting game or the completely uninteresting game?
Well, let's just start with the easy one. The first one is Real Pinball.
Okay.
For some reason in Japan, it's known as Fireball. It was developed by a team called Japan Data Works and published by Panasonic for 3DO in 1994. And it is a straight-ahead pinball game. You get 5 different tables, one of which is locked. I don't know how you unlock it, but I didn't bother because it's video game pinball, right? Like the physics are about accurate. You have like the one camera angle, which is okay.
The music is incredibly grating after 5 seconds.
The music is incredibly grating, and its presentation is lacking because the boards are very repetitious. I think most of them are just like palette swaps. Yeah. It's very dull, you know, because I do like me some video game pinball. I have I think it's on the Xbox, the Gottlieb collection. Which is a video game recreation of a couple historical pinball tables that were real, right? So you get to see, like, say, the development of them throughout the years, and those are like much more fleshed out in 3D. You have a bunch of different camera angles, and there's like challenges you can complete in them to unlock more stuff. Like you can unlock a weird like slot machine pinball game because like the flippers weren't invented until I think like the 40s. So, and the flippers are what you hit to bounce the ball back up. So back in the day, you would just put the coin in, and then all you had was how you launched it up into the table, and then you just kind of prayed to God at that point. And you get one of those in that collection, which is really cool. But here, I mean, it's pinball, but like it's bad when the pinball game on NES has more to it than this.
Hell,
you know what I mean? Hell, that really bad Motley Crue pinball game on the Sega Genesis, like that has more going on than this. I'd rather play Sonic Spinball.
True. Even the Virtual Boy pinball game.
Space Pinball, I believe.
Yeah, what the launch title for it?
Yeah, I know
Cosmic Pinball. I think.
I think so. Let me look it up. Here's your burp for the day. Galactic Pinball. We were there. Yeah, I believe in that game, if you play it long enough, I believe Samus makes a cameo. Like her gunship flies by. Yeah. One of the tables features a cameo from Samus. She's still in her like gunship, like her original one, which is cool. But that's kind of it.
Yeah. Ironically, that the eye grading red of that game is more appealing than anything in Real Pinball on 3DO.
I think it helps because the background is purely black. to be, space. So you can have like the mostly red graphics for that, and it's fine, even though it's not really a ball. It's more like a hockey puck. But it's like pinball video games are hard to get right.
Yeah,
I mean,
the greatest pinball game like that I can think of is still like 3D Pinball Space Cadet on like old Windows
on computer. Yeah. We've all played that, and that's fun because it has a lot of presentation to it. Because pinball is known for its flash, its pizzazz. Because the idea is, if you're going into an arcade and you see like the pinball machines, they have to attract you in some ways. Because at the end of the day, they're all the fucking exact same thing. You just keep the ball on the table and get points. But it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And some pinball machines do a good job of keeping you in with, say, the lights and the sounds and the glitz and the glam. And even that, if you've ever played a real pinball machine, that sort of tactile feeling of like smacking the button on the side to launch the ball up, or say they get stuck in the bumpers, because they all have that set of like bumpers in the middle, like that center of like 3 or 4 where they bounce like crazy, and like you do that and it's fun. And even some of the more advanced ones will have like tubes that go in all different directions, and there'll be like multi-layers and all this other stuff. There's so many things pinball machines do to really keep you invested, right? And even if you're playing, say, an old one, the joy out of it for me is just seeing, how they thought of pinball machines back then, just sort of getting that old kind of design ideas, right?
Oh, yeah.
Real pinball doesn't do any of that. Like, these are just really just boring.
Yeah.
It's fine. It does the job, but I don't know. This is like 94. I could probably go into an arcade and pop like a quarter or like a couple quarters into a real pinball machine and have a better experience than play this game.
It's also got one of the most boring video game covers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That looks like military-ish for some reason.
It looks like a design document.
Yeah, it looks like they hired the cheapest designer, or they designed it in-house or something.
Yeah. I don't know. It just has a CAD look to it, if you know what I mean.
Even the long box variant, it's basically that they just stretched it out. It looks somehow worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird they called it real pinball. Like, I don't know. I think I'd prefer fake pinball.
I think they were playing.
Because you could do more with it than this.
Something tells me they were playing more off the whole like the real Panasonic 3DO like name.
Potentially, and probably with a more advanced console trying to get more of a realistic pinball experience, I guess. But I mean, there are better pinball games on the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis than this.
Because the only other game that Japan Data Works made was a game called Battle Pinball, also for 3DO.
Yes, and that was in Japan only, so that's why we didn't play it. And I can't imagine it's much different than this.
Yeah,
it's no battle chess.
No.
I mean, that game's kind of boring as shit too, but it's trying.
So I did look up some reviews for this game. They were all... So Famitsu gave it 18 out of 40.
That's bad. It might as well be like a fucking 0.
And Next Generation gave it 1 star.
Yeah.
Their
quote is 3DO owners will have to wait a little longer for a real pinball game to appear.
And spoiler warning, they never got it.
If you want to play like a video game pinball thing, there's so many better options for retro or even modern ones. So isn't there a whole, like right now, I think there's like was it Pinball FX or something? It's like this series of pinball games that are coming out now. Or I think it's like you buy the base game and then they make DLCs for different pinball machines and they all have like crazy licensing or whatever. I'm not too familiar with it, but I constantly see it on sale on the Xbox store. So my guess is that's probably where pinball is going. I know they still make real pinball tables, but I imagine there's quite a bit of that happening now where it's like this one company has kind of cornered the market on video game pinball. And I'm sure they're just fine. Like if you want that experience, that's probably the way to go. They might do something with, say, like the analog triggers, like how hard you smack it might be how hard the ball goes up or something. And they could do some cool, wacky shit. You know, you could do something really cool with like a video game pinball now. which I think is what something like, say, a Sonic Spinball was trying to do, was trying to kind of take the pinball concept with Sonic and try to blend it into like a traditional Sonic game. And its results were, well,
Sonic Spinball, I'll give credit for at least being trying to be something. It's a very jank game, and it's not the worst thing I've ever played, but it is jank as fuck.
Its physics are incredibly janky, but I know that first level so well that it doesn't bother me at all. It's when you get later. I have beaten it before. It was a pain in the ass, but I have beaten it because the second table, again, it takes a little longer to learn, but once you do, you kind of figure it out. The third level is not hard to figure out. It's just that's where the wonky physics really
where you get at the mercy of pinball, basically.
Yes, and then the fourth level, just forget about it. Yeah.
Bosses in that game are fucking horrifying, and I kind of love them.
Oh, the designs are great. The music is fantastic.
I
love the soundtrack of Sonic Spinball to death.
The first level stage lives in my head rent free.
Or when the dragon comes out of the water.
Oh yeah.
Scared the shit out of me as a kid.
When I heard that when they put the opening song in the stage 1 song in Sonic Generations, I was like, oh hell yeah, they remembered Spinball.
Somebody had to remember Spinball. But yeah. And there's some others, like I think on the Super Nintendo there's what Jackie Crush. People seem to really like that one. There's a lot of different options for pinball games. I mean, hell, on the NES there's Pinball Quest.
Yep.
Which I'm not a big fan of. It's like trying to be like a pinball RPG, which I think is a cool idea, but I just think it completely failed. But I'd rather play that than this. So Real Pinball, I think we can both say definitively a stay away.
Yeah, like I would say just don't even bother.
Yeah, because video game pinball games can be a little dull, but if it controls well and you just enjoy playing some pinball, it's like, yeah, that's fine. It's like a comfort food kind of thing, right? And that's probably what some people would say about the collection I have on the Xbox of pinball games. Like, yeah, it's kind of dull because it's just playing pinball, but I enjoy it. Popping it in every once in a while and messing around with it, but this doesn't even get away with that. So unfortunately, it is a stay away for me. Yeah,
like I was gonna say, like even like it's the most like it exists pinball game I think I've ever played, but also I don't know if it was just because I don't know in this game physically I was using a 4DO to play it.
As was
I swear the load times for this game are horrendous. Like it takes forever to get to the actual pinball, and then once you lose, it is
very slow.
And then once you lose, it loads again, and you're like, God damn it! Like
And what's so weird is that if you want to exit a table and go to another one, if you're in the middle of a pinball game, you can't do it. You have to finish the round before you can move on to another one, which is weird.
Yeah. So that's a double stay away for us.
A double turd.
Now, moving on from that, we get one of the most bizarre games I think I've played in a long time.
It's up there.
It's interesting. Pataank.
Yeah, Pataank.
So you got pinball, but have you ever imagined where you could actually be the pinball? That's kind of what Pataank is.
Yeah. And so Pataank, interestingly enough, it was developed by a developer named PF Magic.
Returning developer.
Yeah. Now, most people may not know who they are, and that's perfectly fine. Because they did, as you said, they did the 3D Balls games with a Z. And then they moved on afterwards to a different series of games that ends with a Z. If you guys remember, primarily, I believe on like the Game Boy Advance and the DS, the Pets series or the Babies series of games, like dogs and cats and like those like weird virtual pet sims from back then. It's the same fucking people as this. The weird things that goes on in the video game industry. You know, you're like, oh, I'm going to make this unique game where it's pinball from the perspective of the ball. And then a couple years later, they're making a dog simulator.
Yeah. After they made a fighting game where that's literally all balls and makes sex noises.
Yeah. I don't understand how that works.
It's
But
such a-
but it's like it feels like you're not even a ball here because it has like a weird skirt around it and it makes it look like a UFO.
yeah, it's so I love the cover because the cover of the game literally says the first 3D pinball game,
Thrill ride.
Thrill Ride.
I mean, if you want to say thrill ride in terms of motion sickness, then yes, absolutely.
I will say graphically, it's for 3DO standards, it's definitely stimulating.
It has that 3DO look.
Like
You
it's
know,
3D, but not particularly good 3D.
it's something about the sprite, the mix of like sprite work and 3D imagery, a little bit of full motion video, and just like the color palettes and the shaders that they use. It just evokes a 3DO ness to it. You know what I mean? A 3DO chic, if you will. You know, like the moment you look at this game, you probably think like, oh yeah, this was on some weird fucking console in the mid '90s that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
It just has that look to it, you know.
It also
But who published this game, Bill? Why don't you tell us?
so despite their name not being anywhere on the packaging, this game, which is bizarre, this maybe because they didn't want to be associated. In North America, this game was published by Crystal Dynamics of all companies.
Yeah, they didn't want to be associated with it, but they threw their name on it.
Which is hilarious because when I was making the thumbnail for this episode, I was going off of the case and I completely forgot they published it, so I didn't even include them.
Now, do you think because they were they owned by 3DO at this time?
No, they were always independent. They just had a
Okay.
deal with the 3DO for whatever reason.
Do you think part of the deal was like Crystal was like, oh, we want to like maybe publish a couple games. And so they just happened to get this game and just went, okay, I guess we'll publish this to get out of our little contract or whatever.
It's possible. I think they might have just been willing to do it because like they also published and partially helped out with the port of Samurai Showdown that we'll be covering at some point in the future.
Yeah, but that's like working on a SNK fighting game that has prestige to it even back then. Whereas this is just like some no-name developer with this fucking weird idea that I think everybody knew wasn't really going to set the world on fire. But
you know
yeah.
What it might be?
It
honestly might just be like 3DO probably like asked them to do it, and they probably were like, 3DO was probably, you'll get a bit of a kickback for it, and they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, they probably did. Yeah, though I can't imagine this game sold particularly well. I'm sure it sold okay, but
it's one of the games that you always seem to find in like the bargain bins of 3DO games. Like at least in my experience, I've always noticed it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've probably seen a copy of it in person, but I didn't go out of my way to grab it. Because I was just like, I don't know about that one.
I bought it just because I it's one of the games I knew about. That and I got it for cheap.
Yeah.
But it definitely has a style to it. It is a very 90s, very in your face kind of game.
Yeah, it's very 3DO studio.
Like you start the game and the game literally is like, whoa. It's like, what?
Right. Like this is how you know what the 90s truly were like when you look at the media made at the time that nobody remembers.
Like
you
the
know,
first
like stuff like this.
The first stage is literally like the tunnel of love, and it's all like romance fucking movies in the background, and it's like this guy that's like screaming in your face the entire time. He's like, "You're gonna go down the tube."
Get fucked, you know, that kind of shit.
And it's like, oh, by the way, do you want to know how to get past the level? We're not gonna tell you. You've got to figure it out yourself.
Why don't you blow me? Yeah.
Basically. Like, I bet the majority of people who have played this, like, I did a stream of 3DO games a while back, and I was playing this, and I was pretty drunk by that point. By the time I got to Pataank, I was pretty drunk, so I forgot how to play. And I'm just, like, bouncing into walls and shit, and I'm like, I don't remember how to fucking play this game.
Yeah, it's crazy. Apparently, according to one of the producers on the game, the 3DO company did pay for this to be made. So
that makes a lot of sense.
So they funded this. They were like, yeah, this should work, right? And it's a neat idea. It truly is, but I just don't think it works because the idea is okay, you have the ball, or like you are the ball, see the ball, be the ball. And it's like, okay, maybe there's some more urgency to this. Maybe there's like specific objectives I need to complete to actually like complete these tables. And if there are, the game does not tell you.
No, the game tells you fuck all. Like,
Yeah. So like I played that one table a bit and just couldn't figure out what to do. Like I was like, oh, let me, get a bunch of points. Let me try to hit these bumpers because you can just tap, I think it's B, and just like relaunch yourself up. And you can just spam the shit out of it.
you can spam it, but it does have a limit to it.
Very, very minor. Or maybe the limit's like much, much later.
It depends how you do it. If you spam the shit out of it, like it'll drain really fast. But if you like use it sparingly, you can pretty much have it forever.
Yeah, and then I saw there was this like tunnel at the top. Sorry, there was this tunnel at the top, and I was trying to get in there, and I just couldn't do it because I feel like this game is not running at a great frame rate, or I think when it gets more intense, the frame rate just completely fucking dies.
It's better than some 3DO games, but it's still not particularly great.
Yeah, and like when I was talking about like getting motion sickness, like I'm not kidding. Like this game was so fucking nuts. I was honestly getting kind of physically ill playing it, which does not happen to me when I play video games. Like I don't get physically ill even in crazy motion stuff. But for some reason, this game really did it for me.
The best way to describe it is kind of like it's you're playing pinball, but the camera is like, rather than being like zoomed out, is like just like constantly on the ball's ass the entire time, and it just follows the ball wherever it goes, and it's very. The best way to... So, I still have no idea how to get past the first level. I legitimately just, like, kind of fucked around and hit shit for, like, 20 minutes, and then suddenly the door just opened, and I was like, I guess I did it, and I just went...
The only thing I could guess is that maybe they want you to reach a certain amount of points before you move on. That's the only thing I could guess.
That was what I thought, but like the points I had were like random. Like it didn't like it also didn't like announce anything. The thing just opened, and I was like, "All right, did I hit like the right thing or it?" I
don't know. I don't know. I mean, if they were trying to do something more with this, it clearly failed.
Like I legit got past the first level, got to the second level, and then couldn't figure out the second level, and I was like, you know what? I've played enough. I think this is all we need to know.
Yeah. This one just didn't work for me.
This game is like, I joke because the show's called the 3DO Experience. This is definitely an experience.
Yeah, I'll give it. I'll give it that. It's definitely memorable, but I don't think it's memorable for the right reasons.
Yeah, like it's not a good game, but the thing about it is the reason why I kind of am always like drawn to it is like when I think 3DO, this is kind of what I think. Like just random shit like this that they tried it didn't work, and it lives on 3DO now for eternity.
Yeah, like you can respect a game like this being made because it's something unique. And I can respect it for trying to do something kind of different. But at the same time, you wonder, like, who is this for?
Legitimately, like, I am convinced this... So the thing about the 3DO and why I really like this console is this was literally like the Wild West of gaming at the time. Like, legit, like, Trip Hawkins' entire idea was basically like, throw everything at the wall and let's see what sticks. And this is the perfect example of that. They literally were like, try it. Does it work? Not at all. Oh, well. And that's it.
Yeah, like, I'm sure I've asked this before about other games, but Pataank, it feels perfect. If this game was done today by an indie dev, would it be better, worse, about the same, you think?
The thing is,
you would think with modern game design, or at least with like people being a little bit smarter about making games now, that somebody attempting this, it could probably work better.
It probably, just from a design standpoint, like if they actually told you what to fucking do, like that would be immediately a step in the right direction. I think the biggest issue with a game like this is the fact that it's a pinball game, and you're just a lot of the times you're going to just be at the mercy of pinball.
Yeah, and pinball itself has a specific audience. I don't know if I'd call pinball niche, because I think all of us have played a pinball game, and I think we all enjoy pinball. But to be somebody who's like really into it, like knowing like all the different tables and getting like really into it, like that's very niche. And I feel like this game was maybe made for people who are more like kind of hardcore pinball people. But I can't imagine them liking this.
No, it is very much one of those things where it's like interesting idea on paper, doesn't work in execution.
Exactly. And
like,
so
honestly, this is a really much a stretch. But when I think of like the closest game I can think of that's comparable to this, not even the same genre, just kind of from an idea where it's like something that they tried and failed at, is like, you ever play Super Monkey Ball Adventure?
The platformer Monkey Ball game made by Traveler's Tales?
Yeah, the one that was
fucking like, Traveler's Tales. I can't escape them.
Which is sad because they're a really good developer, but they have also made a lot of shit.
They're such a fascinating developer because you could, I mean, if you want, you could cut their history in half with pre-Lego and post-Lego.
You could. The thing with them too is like a lot of their really bad games, like Rascal, awful game, but there is some really impressive fucking tech in that game.
Yeah, like I would say Traveler's Tales has always been a very talented developer.
Oh yeah.
Even if not every game they made was a banger. I mean, back in the day, if you look through their older stuff, like they made like Mickey Mania, which is pretty good. That Toy Story game was pretty good. Like 3D Blast Mania. 3D Blast is okay. Sonic R is okay. Let's see. Oh, they did was it Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue? I kind of like that game. Oh yeah, they did a version of Weakest Link, the game show video game, and that is actually a very good version of that game in a video game form.
Oh yeah. No, there are a great dev. I bring up Super Monkey Ball Adventure because like it's a similar thing where they kind of like they took this idea of like a puzzle platformish kind of game, and they were like, what if we just made it a full-on platformer? What? It doesn't work at all. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, there's still quite a bit of monkey balling to do in that game, but
it is the problem with that game though is
the problem is the hub worlds.
Oh yeah,
and the idea of just taking how Monkey Ball controls, as you said, and just turning into a straight up platformer like a Mario game. No, also, they don't gel at all.
Also, similar to Pataank, they don't tell you what to fucking do.
Yeah, they really don't. Like Super Monkey Ball Adventure just feels like a complete waste of time. I feel like of all the games in the series, that's the one that's been forgotten the most. Well, maybe not the most, but
See, I own a copy of it because
does anybody remember Banana Splits?
Only because was that the Vita one?
Yeah, you do, because you're a fucking Vita weirdo.
I don't own it. I don't own it.
There's Step and Roll, which is the other Wii one that uses the balance board.
See, I only remember Banana Blitz because of the AVGN episode where he was in the fucking beard and he was like, Super Monkey Ball, Banana Blitz.
And I played Banana Blitz HD, and it is fine. It's fine.
Yeah. The last good one was the one on 3DS, and even that's not amazing.
Nah, Banana Mania was good.
Which one was that?
The one that came out in 21.
Okay, I forgot about it.
The one that's like the 20th anniversary of Monkey Ball, and it's in a weird way, it's a remake of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the PS2 version.
Yeah, which is a combination of Monkey Ball 1 and 2. This is basic. Banana Mania is basically that, but like with much cleaner visuals, and it has more mini games and all that, and it's fantastic. Like its physics aren't the same as the original GameCube ones, but it's very close. Okay. And you could buy DLC and be a Game Gear in a ball or a Dreamcast in a ball. Yeah. Which had the Dreamcast kept going, it probably would have got a port of Monkey Ball. So I think Monkey Ball was in the arcades when the Dreamcast was dying.
It came out in 2000.
Yeah, so and I believe they were planning the original to come Dreamcast. Like
Oh, yeah.
they were working on it, but it just, when it got discontinued, it didn't hit. Because Monkey Ball feels like a Dreamcast game, doesn't it?
Most of Sega's games that came out on Xbox and GameCube feel like they should have been Dreamcast
Yeah,
games.
yeah. Panzer Dragoon Saga, Gun Valkyrie, Crazy Taxi 3, Shenmue 2.
Well, Shenmue 2 was a Dreamcast game.
Yeah, true. Sonic Adventure 2 was a Dreamcast game.
Billy Hatcher feels like it should have been.
Billy Hatcher. Oh, God. I fucking love Billy Hatcher.
That game is like the most either you love it or hate it game I've ever seen.
I love that game. It's not a great game, but I do love it.
It's actually really funny. Like, Nintendo got all of. We're back on Dreamcast, but that's fine. Nintendo literally got all of Sega's like Sonic Team stuff. Xbox got all the unique niche stuff, and then Sony only got Virtual Fighter and Shinobi.
Which is a shame because I would have liked Virtua Fighter on GameCube.
Or
Xbox.
Xbox.
It feels right on Xbox.
Most of them feel right on Xbox.
Yeah. Because there's also Toe Jam and Earl 3.
That's probably the weakest game out of all the ones Sega did post.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Um,
there's a lot of weird stuff. I'm just kind of looking through everything.
Yeah, like Virtual Fighter 4 was like the one that PlayStation got.
I'm just looking through their lineup of games. Rez was Sega?
They published it.
Okay, because I'm like, that's not a Sega game. Sega Bass Fishing, but those never came to other consoles.
Space Channel 5 Part 2 was also on PlayStation, I believe.
I didn't know Space Channel got a sequel.
Yeah, that's actually the weirdest game on the remember the Dreamcast collection on Xbox 360?
Yeah, that collection is not good.
No, because it's a bad port of Sonic Adventure, Crazy Taxi without the Offspring music, so who cares?
Sega Bass Fishing, which is good, but like that's not enough to sell a collection on, and then Space Channel 5.
Part 2, not even Part 1.
Yeah, because part 1 has Michael Jackson in it.
That's
and
true.
They had to take him out.
The other Sega Michael Jackson crossover.
Exactly. Yeah, Virtua Fighter 4, Panzer Dragoon Orta. Basically, yeah, like the Smile Bit games went on Xbox.
Smile Bit, Hitmaker.
Because they also did Jet Set, didn't they?
They did Jet. So Smile Bit was a combination. It was like a fusion of like Team Andromeda and another company at Sega. They fused together and made Smile Bit.
Yeah. So there's a lot of weird Sega studios. I mean, that's a whole thing in and of itself. Because right now, I think they have 3 different studios or 4.
They have a lot.
They have quite a few, but most of them don't do much.
Yeah, well, because the main ones are Sonic Team, the Yakuza Studio, and then Creative Assembly are like their big 3.
Yeah, and then there's like the ones that like say work on Phantasy Star Online too. The ones who do like what's their soccer series? Don't they have a soccer series?
Football Manager,
and then there's the 2 Point Studio people.
Oh, they also people forget about them, but they technically still exist. AM2.
Yeah, AM2 does still exist. Yep.
The oldest studio at Sega. It's the only AM studio that survived.
Yeah, because I think they restructured everything last couple of years. I think
they've restructured all of them multiple times, but like they still kind of give AM2 its honorary status because it's such an important studio.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of important ones that they don't do that too. But
I think Sonic Team is technically AM7, but they're just Sonic Team now.
I believe they're Division 2.
They've changed the name so many times.
Exactly, but we just call them Sonic Team. The Yakuza team is the Ryuga Gadoko Studio, yeah. And I believe they said they have an unannounced game, don't they?
Yeah, they're working on something.
And Sega says they have a unannounced game coming to Gamescom. It's probably going to be whatever they're working on. I'm hoping it's the next Virtua Fighter.
I hope so, but
it makes way too much sense to be like, let's finally do Virtua Fighter 6. I would be so fucking happy to see a Virtua Fighter 6. I want it. I will fucking pay for that because I love the Virtua Fighter games.
Virtual Fighter to me it's so sad because those are like literally like I think the most complete fighting games ever made, but they don't have like stories or anything, so they're very much like you're playing it specifically just for the fighting.
They walk that fine line of being simple and complex, which is very difficult for fighting games to be. Like they're very beginner friendly, but the more you play it and the more you get into the tech, there is like some depth there. It's not Guilty Gear thing, but there's something simple about Virtua Fighter that I like as well.
It's very simple and stylistic.
It has that Sega flair to it, which I like. And yeah, it's simple, and I've always enjoyed playing them. So
also the first 3 Virtual Fighter cabinets are all in the Smithsonian, which is like there are only 3 video games in the Smithsonian, I believe.
Good. Sega stay winning. Sorry, guys. Y'all know by now. I'm a Sega guy.
Yeah, same.
I'll always be a Sega boy.
I'm like I've slowly kind of become the guy who likes all consoles now, but I've always had a soft.
There's something to like about all of them. There is. It's just Sega holds a very special place in my heart. And had I gotten a Dreamcast or back then, which I could have, had I gotten one then, I'd probably still have the thing, and I'd probably be even more attached to it. But things happen.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll eventually turn this into a Sega cast, or just talk about Sega.
I mean, we could always do side stuff. But we should probably finish up on Pataank. Reception-wise, there actually is quite a few reviews for Pataank. Probably because, ironically, it came out around the same time as Real Pinball.
Yeah.
EGM gave it a 24 out of 40. GamePro gave it a 17.5 out of 20. Next Generation gave it 2 stars. 3DO Magazine gave it 4.
Thank God, 3DO, you're coming in.
Coming Soon Magazine. I don't know if that's an actual magazine or they just didn't have the name. Gave it 3.5. Electronic Games a D+. Entertainment Weekly an A-.
They know their shit over there.
And then I'm assuming this is a foreign magazine. Generation 4 gave it 8%. And then
damn, harsh as hell.
Video Games gave it a 7 out of 10. So this is a very mixed one.
I mean, I could see why.
One of the Next Generation's review is perfect. An interesting idea done badly.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. I could see some people really getting into this game, but it wasn't going to be us.
What I find funny is like under the reception tab on Wikipedia, they give the Next Generation review, and then below they're just like Entertainment Weekly gave it an A-. Like,
well, good for them. Good for them.
It's like cool. Must play. Okay, stay away. I'm gonna say stay away. Although I do think it's definitely interesting to at least observe.
Yeah, but I'd stay away.
I'd watch a gameplay loop of it, maybe on like YouTube for a few minutes, just to get the idea of it, and then
if you get motion sickness like I do, stay the fuck away because this game is probably gonna trigger that for you.
It's the most like this is like literally the most you push a button and just kind of watch it happen kind of game.
Kinda, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a stay away. It's an interesting stay away, but it's definitely a stay away.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. I'll give it that.
Damn, we're batting 100 on these first 3 games we played post episode 50.
Man,
3 stay aways.
It's just it's been rough, man.
So that leads to the question: what do we want to do for our next game?
Well, that is a good question.
Do you want to do? It's been a while since we did a first-person shooter. Do you want to do Monster Manor?
Let's do Monster Manor.
Okay. See how this one holds up because we have not, other than.
I've played a bit of this already, so I have thoughts, but
okay,
I'll save them.
All right. Well, and on that note, guys, once again, you can find the 3DO Experience on all the major podcasting platforms. And you can also find us over at the SuperPod Network, along with a whole bunch of other awesome podcast creators, including Superpod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, and Nova Console, Remember 64, Bar Silence, Fine Time, Gaming Together, Friday Night Gamecast, The Elder Trolls, Tommy's Video Game Ride Along, and then the GNC shows. I believe that's everybody.
Yeah, the Elder Trolls recently, they did stuff with Friday Night Gamecast where they had AI make a video game Jeopardy.
Nice.
So if you haven't seen that, go watch that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and then Superpod just did a really awesome Resident Evil episode that's really worth checking out.
Yes, I was listening to that at work the other day. That was pretty good.
Yep. And if anyone hasn't checked it out yet, we also did a Q&A episode, video over on the Superpod YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out.
A Q&A nightmare.
It was something. But yeah, other than that, and then you're streaming this week, right?
Yes, I am bringing back the Genesis streams. I've had many people request that I bring them back. And with the new job and everything kind of figuring itself out, like I get home and I'm not completely exhausted. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do this. So on Thursday, the 15th of August, I will date myself, at 7 p.m., I will be returning to the stream. I'll be streaming some Genesis games. I think I still have my request list somewhere. There it is. Yeah, I still have it, and I remember I actually have a list of games already set up for it. So we'll be playing that. And again, if you guys have any requests, go to Twitter and comment under the pinned tweet. Please let me know, because I want to play the games you want to play. So, and I already have quite a few requests, but feel free to add more. Because Sick Jake added a few more the other day, so nice. I got to add them in.
And for audio listeners, you can find the link to Thrax's Twitch channel in the description below. And for video listeners, you can find it in both the description and down there, right below us.
Stare at it.
But anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us on the 3DO Experience, and we'll see you all later.
Bye-bye.
If you're not playing on a 3DO system, what are you playing with?